Truly. Resident Evil.
The zombie from earlier had gotten distracted by a rat and was wandering away from the RPD gates. So with not having to contend with the zombie, Conrad took a moment before leaving the gated area to look at the crudely drawn map from the officer and got his bearings. He then checked his watch and saw it was now 12:37 p.m. They opened the gates and exited back outside. Taking in their surroundings again made them feel even more hopeless.
We should use our blades again.
The soldiers agreed and pulled out their blades. Let's hurry, back to back in a circle. Then we can watch all directions and defend ourselves. Me, Rodriguez, and Williamson will take point. Stay close. Stay back to back. Conrad urged the group as they headed around a couple cars. To the right of the RPD was the road they needed. They headed up Warren Street, continuing to kill the dead as they went. It was much easier to dispatch the horde of the living dead in this tight formation Conrad had devised. They easily killed 10 zombies stretched out as they made it up the road. As they got to Flower Street, they kept going straight, passing abandoned buildings, cars, and stores as they went. After almost 50 minutes of walking, they reached the road to City Hall. Williamson spotted the building in the distance. He pointed and said,
There it is.
Before them to their left stood the large building they needed. Conrad hoped Carpenter was still inside. If not, they were going to have to find another way to him. They needed information only he could give. Otherwise, they were stranded in this dead city. St. Michael's clock tower was now their only hope out of here.
It happened before they even realized what was taking place. 3 dogs, missing patches of skin, ran and jumped on Brian Henriksen. One going straight for the throat and clamping down hard. This startled the group, causing 3 of the survivors to run for the stairs to City Hall. One of the zombified dogs was a large Saint Bernard, another an American Bulldog, and the last was a black Great Dane. Two of them came from the same family and weren't acting right over the last 2 days prior to them turning. The dogs acted sick and exhausted with an increasing fever. The parents intended to take the pets to the vet if they didn't show improvement soon, while unknowingly continuing to infect the dogs with tainted tap water, causing them to eventually turn on their family during a summer cookout. The young children were their easiest prey as they played in the front yard, but the parents fought back. The father broke the bulldog's left rib, and the wife stabbed the Saint Bernard in the stomach before they killed and infected them too. The knife the wife used was still visibly sticking out of the Saint Bernard's gut. The Great Dane, however, was different. The family became infected, starting with the strange fever that struck Raccoon City in the early days. They weren't among the families that sought help at the local hospital, which ended up becoming ground zero for this monstrous pandemic. They couldn't afford the insurance premiums it would have cost to take the whole family, so they stayed home, praying it would pass. The family turned and then feasted on the family dog together. They left great bites, viciously ripped out down to the bone, which was now easily visible in some places on this once magnificent animal. The 3 soldiers took aim as fast as they could with their handguns, shooting the one on Brian's neck first. Several shots hitting its torso, one of them connecting with the bulldog's head, causing it to fall to its side and die. Conrad's gun clicked empty. Conrad turned to the survivors still with them and shouted, "Find cover!" The 2 other dogs lost interest with Brian, and the Great Dane lunged at Williamson, causing him to fall to his back as he struggled with the dog. The other 2 soldiers weren't having it. They weren't going to lose him too. This mission's events caused the 3 men to grow close, trusting each other fully with their lives, brothers in arms, all 3 being sent here to die by Umbrella. Rodriguez kicked it off. Then Conrad took out his hatchet and began hacking. The zombified dog stopped moving after a moment as he cleaved its head open, causing brain to expel forth as he retracted the hatchet. The zombified Saint Bernard had set its sights on another survivor, Alan Hopkins. Alan fell to his back as the dog jumped up and bit into his face. The man's screams were blood-chilling as the dog fed. The carrion canine viciously ripped Alan's bottom jaw clean off. Quickly, the screaming became gurgling. Soon, even that stopped as this monstrous brute continued eating. Conrad landed the killing blow, striking the Saint Bernard by jumping into the air and coming down hard with his hatchet into the top of its neck, slicing through its cerebellum, almost chopping the dog's head clean off. Veronica came out from behind a car to join the soldiers. Conrad looked at Brian, who was choking on his own blood. He had a massive bite deep into his neck, unluckily missing the jugular vein and carotid artery by centimeters. This meant he was going to bleed out and die a slower and much more painful death, slowly drowning in his own blood.
I'm sorry we couldn't save you. We only have one thing left to offer. If we leave you this way, you might return as the dead. We've seen it happen. We can give you mercy. That means we can stop this from happening, but we have to kill you by destroying your brain.
Yes. It took great energy for Brian to say this, blood spewing up out of his mouth as he tried to speak.
Shoot me. I'm sorry, but I can't waste the bullet. Give me your knife, please, Rodriguez.
I got this, bro.
Rodriguez kneeled down to Brian and said,
I'm sorry.
He then turned to Williamson.
Help me turn him over.
Williamson obliged. Brian coughed, and more blood spurted out of his mouth. Using the last shred of his energy, Brian spoke two weak and trembling words.
Kill me.
Rodriguez took his knife, pressing it to the back of his neck, where the top of his spinal cord met his brain.
This will only hurt for a second. Be at peace.
Brian stopped gagging as all sounds stopped, and he became limp. They weren't able to save this civilian, but they were able to deliver him some peace for all it's worth. The soldiers and Veronica stood there a moment before Conrad urged them to keep moving.
We can't stay here.
The group's morale was slipping. Conrad had a dark thought slip into his mind.
We're them.
In reference to the dead.
They're us, and we're them if we don't get out of here.
He wasn't going to allow them to become another walking dead thing in this city, if he could stop it. Conrad shook his head, trying to clear this dark thought from his mind, and walked to City Hall's large steps. Jessica, Sarah, and the last male survivor, Alexander, were here waiting. Relief appeared on their faces as the soldiers came up the stairs.
Get behind us.
The survivors got behind the soldiers as they entered the building. The building, from the outside, looked almost like a large cathedral, multiple floors in size. It was so massive, it felt like it swallowed up Conrad and the group as they entered. The entrance was a large atrium resembling a courthouse. In fact, many years ago this was a courthouse, before it became City Hall. The smell of old books and fax paper hit Conrad's nose, bringing back memories of the day he spent in court, pleading with the judge to let him join the Marines instead of being sent to prison. This place was fairly untouched compared to the rest of the city. Conrad silently wondered to himself just what the hell Carpenter's mission was, since it sent him to this, of all places.
I have no idea where he is, so let's get to looking quietly and quickly.
The first floor didn't hold any sign of Carpenter. They even found a few untouched zombies to kill in their search. Conrad feared Carpenter might have died somewhere out on the streets. He ignored this and said,
Let's try the next floor,
as he pointed to a sizable staircase leading to the next floor.
Once on the second floor, they continued their search. They went down the building, checking each room as they went. They found offices, a janitor's closet, bathrooms, even gargantuan rooms that were originally courtrooms, but found not a single sign of Carpenter. The group killed a few zombies in business suits here and there. These zombies were extremely rotten. The smell from these dead citizens almost made them puke. They could smell them before they even saw them. The closer they got, the more foul the stench permeated off them. In their search for Carpenter, they came upon a dark chamber. They flipped the switch, but the lights weren't responding. This room was also once a courtroom before the building changed to City Hall. Since the outbreak, trivial matters of the day-to-day was replaced by hunting for your next meal and trying to survive in this city. As a result, this room's purpose was now lost to time as far as outsiders went. This meant the only people left who would know its purpose was the ones who worked here, if they were even still alive. A noise comes from behind a large table, a moist-sounding mournful groan, which scared them half to death. They could hear groaning, but they couldn't see anything. The soldiers half expected to see one crawling somewhere on the floor of the dark room, illuminated by only their flashlights. The soldiers slowly tiptoe their way around a large round table in the center of the room. The scent of carrion flesh choking them more and more with each step. The soldiers make it around the table and finally saw the source of the smell and the groaning. Williamson vomits as they see a citizen rotten to almost complete goo. Most of its bones had liquefied from the waist down. It made a gargling groan as it turned to look at the soldiers, still driven only by hunger. It was so rotten, it couldn't be distinguishable from male or female. The survivor stepped forward to see too.
Stop! Just stay there. You don't need to see this.
What is it?
It was a citizen, but it's almost completely rotted away as a zombie. Conrad was overcome by shock. Depending on the subject, some of the infected hosts would rot to nothing within a couple weeks. Variables would change the timeline of this based on each subject. Others may not reach such a state of decomposition so fast. It all depended on how the virus mutated within the host. Such an extreme state of decomposition was rare though, but still plausible within the confines of a T-virus infection. This putrefied citizen reminded Conrad of some of the zombies they encountered at Raccoon's Delight, especially the first hand he cleaved with his axe. When the dead citizen's hand hit the ground, it almost exploded with a sound of infection or pus bursting from flesh. It was easy to cut clean too. However, most of the other dead citizens they encountered were more solid. It all depended on how their body reacted to the virus. They didn't know this at the time, but this also affected the reanimation times. After the fever killed them, or they died with the virus in their system, some would take a few days, others a few seconds to return from the dead. A lot of the virus's victims took longer early on in the outbreak, but the zombification process seemed to be speeding up in many hosts the longer the virus was able to continue mutating, hopping from one host to the next, evolving a little more each time. That being said, everything is still dependent on each subject's genetic makeup mixed with the virus to how it will react. Although, what this virus could do on a long enough timeline is anyone's guess, but with the T-virus, any dark outcome was possible at this time. The kill rate of the fever also varied, depending on exposure to the contaminated water supply and the dilution factor of the virus mixed with water. It is currently unknown how the city's water was contaminated with the T-virus, but it was one of two reasons why the city's populace was infected. Although, this group was oblivious to the epidemiology of this virus.
Let's just get out of here.
Conrad urged, wanting to flee from this horrendous spectacle. He wasn't sure he could ever get the image out of his mind. He wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted out of here with everything in him. This mission had gotten under his skin and was slowly destroying him from the inside like a cancer, making Conrad want to watch Umbrella burn.
Let's try the next floor.
They head up to the next floor, are greeted by two sizable double doors in front of them. They were almost ominous in the light of the flickering hall. A sign read, City Council next to the door.
Let's try this room.
Inside, they discovered a very large room where the council used to convene before this city's personal apocalypse began. A gigantic table with mounted microphones and leather office chairs was at the back of the room. As they enter, they are flanked with meticulously lined pews for citizens to attend and confer with the council.
There!
Williamson pointed to the table. On it was an open bag with the letters UBCS. It was the bag Carpenter had taken with the explosives inside from Barker at JJ's bar. Carpenter was here. Before they could make it to the back of the room, shots from an assault rifle were being fired in their direction. One of the bullets from the barrage of gunfire hit the last male survivor, Alexander Lincoln, in the head, killing him instantly. In an instant, Conrad realized the assault rifle's trajectory was about to hit Veronica Price and Sarah Weaver. Jessica Curtis jumped out of the way, ducking under a bench. Veronica didn't have a chance to react. She was about to be hit next. Conrad tackled Veronica to save her from being shot, too.
No! I can't let this happen!
I won't let her die, too, Conrad thought as flashes of the dead woman from his dreams appeared in his mind. Sarah Weaver was shot in the arm as the firing suddenly stopped.
I see you found me just in time. I was about to leave.
Carpenter yelled out from behind a half-open door on the other side of the table as he reloaded, his cold voice enraging Conrad.
God damn it, Carpenter!
All we want is information. No one else has to die.
But this is more fun. Besides, you lot were just in my way. If you had only followed my orders, you might have made it out of here with me.
Carpenter fired again, but his shots missed. They went through the benches, hitting the walls next to the large double doors they had just entered through. The group were ducking and huddled up behind the benches.
Stay down!
Williamson told the three surviving women covering their heads. They could hear him eject another magazine.
Return fire!
The three men stood up, firing their weapons at the back of the room. They missed. Carpenter had crouched down behind the door, located on the other side of the city council's large desk. He was only visible long enough to shoot in their direction. Conrad bent down to reload again. Before Conrad finished,
Carpenter had reloaded, stood up, and began to return fire, forcing the soldiers to duck back down. Carpenter's bullets tore into the benches, causing shards of wood to rain down on them like snow. Conrad used hand signals to tell his fellow soldiers his plan. They fanned out, crawling to the end of the benches. Rodriguez and Williamson went left, and Conrad went right. Carpenter stopped firing as the clip of his new M4 assault rifle ran out again. Earlier, he found the assault rifle on a zombified U.S. soldier, shortly after leaving the group to die at the high school. He shot the zombie soldier in the head with his .357 Magnum and took the assault rifle dangling from his shoulder. In a bag, wrapped around the U.S. soldier, was 5 extra clips, in addition to the 2 clips on his bulletproof vest. The gun itself was empty, which led to the man being mauled and becoming a zombie. Carpenter had used 1 clip in a fight with a 2-headed mutant that tried breaking his skull open and sucking out his brain. Carpenter was successful in knocking the creature off before it had a chance to feed. But he unloaded a whole clip out of fear from it attempting to leap on him again. He then lost another clip to a BOW he accidentally bumped into on the city streets. It was codenamed Pursuer. It soon lost interest in Carpenter, tossing him halfway up the street into a car windshield as he saw one of his targets, STARS officer Brad Vickers. It groaned the word as it took off after Brad. Carpenter rode off the car onto the hard concrete street. He was covered in glass. It was even in his short brown hair. Small cuts were on his arms, not deep enough to worry with, but deep enough to cause a mild sting. He was trying to get the pain from being thrown into the car to ease, when 2 zombies suddenly appeared, drawn by the sound of his fight with the nemesis and the faint scent of blood. The falling zombie lunged for him, falling down upon him. He struggled with it as the other zombie came to do the same thing, while holding it off him with one hand, preventing it from biting him. He grabbed his survival knife off his belt and stabbed it up through its neck, into its brain. The other portly zombie was then upon him, falling on top of them both. This made it hard for him to breathe, while being crushed by the weight of the zombie, now sandwiched between them, with the hilt of his blade pushing into his chest. He struggled, but was unable to pull the blade free to stab the portly one. It was difficult, but he was able to unholster his magnum. Carpenter was having trouble getting a clean shot, being compressed by so much dead meat. After a moment, the iron sights lined up with the living dead citizen as it crawled over the other zombie to get to Carpenter. He squeezed the trigger and hit his target, causing half of the back of its head to explode off at this close range. He struggled for a few moments, but managed to wrestle his way out of the pile of rotting dead. He then took deep breaths and centered himself, his ears ringing all the while from the shot being fired so close to his head. Standing up, he pulled the blade out of the dead zombie and continued on. After his ears stopped ringing, he pulled out his radio and switched to the secret channel for just Umbrella supervisors to make sure his orders were still the same. He was informed another supervisor had been killed, and he was to assume his mission as well, leading him away from the proposed evac at the RPD to City Hall. Currently, now that they had a better vantage point, Rodriguez and Williamson stood up and began firing in Carpenter's direction. This forced Carpenter to jump out of the way, deeper into the room he was shooting from. Once they stopped shooting and ducked back down, Carpenter moved out from behind the door to the large city council table, using it to lean on and return fire. Carpenter stopped to reload, giving the men a chance to make their mark. Conrad hurried and stood up, firing 4 shots at Carpenter, hitting his target. 2 shots went into Carpenter's left arm, and 1 in his shoulder. Carpenter fell to his back onto the floor.
Now is our chance!
Rodriguez hurriedly advanced on Carpenter, not wasting the opportunity to gain the upper hand. Conrad and Williamson followed behind, weapons at the ready. Rodriguez kicked the assault rifle away as Carpenter began to speak.
You did it. I'm surprised. Don't think you've won yet, though.
Enough!
All we want to know is what to do with the clock tower. Base camp wouldn't tell us. They said we needed to get to you. What the fuck do we have to do to get out of here?
You have to ring the bells in the bell tower. That will signal a chopper stationed close by on a roof to come and pick you up. They were placed there for our evac, or in case anything went wrong for the supervisors. There's a few choppers set up for exactly that, scattered throughout this large city. Delta Team's evac is now there. It all depends on the supervisor's missions and where it takes them.
What was your mission? What was worth killing us over?
Conrad looked next to Carpenter. A folder was lying on the floor he had dropped. Conrad picked it up and began flipping through it.
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
This shows Umbrella has infiltrated City Hall. And the mayor is being paid off. He then turned back to Carpenter as rage began to burn like hellfire within him. How much else did they control in this city? What the fuck is Operation Phoenix? In Conrad's enraged state, he kicked Carpenter in his side.
We're to protect you while you hide evidence?
This is why Umbrella really wants us here.
That's what you were doing in that office building. I saw his ass sneak into an office as we fought those creatures in the ceiling. I say we leave him here to die. Let the motherfucker get eaten and rot like the piece of trash he is.
The men nodded in agreement.
You're right about that. You are here to protect the supervisors. Plus, you were sent in to die. As we record combat data on the infected, the BOWs, and mutants that we've spotted since landing. How they hold up against you. You're our guinea pigs, nothing more. You mean nothing. It's best to have data on how all this holds up to show the buyers. In that regard, you're a valuable asset. As far as Umbrella, they own everything here. Even the fucking police, whether all of them know it or not. Plan B, our Operation Phoenix, is for us to secure evidence in different locations, damning Umbrella. They're fail-safe with certain locations, especially with City Hall's large-ass size. I was to take the C4 and destroy the buildings. And that back room is enough C4 to level this place.
Carpenter's words caused the 3 soldiers to look towards the back room. Carpenter then quickly pulled out his magnum revolver with his unshot hand as he looked the other way and aimed it at Conrad. Williamson fired and shot Carpenter in the head. causing Carpenter's magnum to miss Conrad and put a hole in the ceiling. Williamson was fortunately an expert marksman, having grown up around firearms.
Thank you.
Don't mention it, brother.
I'm checking the office.
Rodriguez then walked into the back room. Conrad tucked the file away under his bulletproof vest, quickly devising a plan to give the file to whoever would listen to him about Umbrella once they are out of here. He would do anything he could to make sure they paid for what they did here to these citizens. He picked up Carpenter's magnum, popped out the chamber, and saw to his dismay each round had been fired. So he grabbed the clips on his side instead. He also took a moment to grab Carpenter's map out of his pocket and tucked it away under his vest as well. Conrad then walked over to the M4 assault rifle. He quickly ejected the magazine and reloaded it. Once Rodriguez was inside the back room, he began searching it as the lights flickered above him. He silently hoped he wouldn't find an explosive. He looked under papers covering the desk in a big pile. He pulled drawers out of a file cabinet. He wasn't seeing the device Carpenter alluded to anywhere. After a few minutes of searching, he saw to his dismay, in the office chair pushed under the desk, was the explosive. They only had a little under 4 minutes to escape. Moments prior, as Rodriguez entered and began his search. In the back of the room for the city council, 2 large doors were sitting open from where they entered. 3 women were watching what was taking place with the soldiers up front. 3 zombies began to pour into the room following the sound of gunfire. One zombie was wearing a bloody business suit. His stomach was exposed from ripped up clothes, and the intestines were partly hanging out from a giant belly wound. Another was a woman missing part of her neck, wearing a white business suit now stained with dried blood. Their cold, white, dead eyes fixated on one of the survivors. The 2 zombies in business suits attacked Jessica Curtis, who was standing against the wall by the open door in the back, waiting for the soldiers. The other zombie is a very tall man wearing a janitorial jumpsuit. This man's clothes were also ripped open, exposing large bite marks on his arms and torso. He grabbed Veronica Price. Jessica was engulfed by the zombies as they began to take bites out of her face and neck. Her screams filled the room but quickly stopped as death overtook her. Sarah Weaver attacked the large janitor on Veronica Price, stabbing it with her knife. This wasn't helping much. He was too tall for Sarah to reach his head. Sarah lost her knife stuck in his back in the struggle. The large man scratched Veronica's arm underneath her t-shirt sleeve as he pushes her down to the ground. As Veronica struggled, Sarah jumped on the zombie, trying to prevent her from being bitten. Conrad and Williamson noticed the attack in the back when Jessica screamed. Before they could react, Rodriguez came bursting out of the back room yelling,
We have minutes before it blows. Move your motherfucking asses.
The soldiers make it to the surviving woman as fast as their legs will carry them, firing at the zombies. Conrad shot, hitting the large janitor in the head, and it fell over onto Veronica, forcing Sarah, who was still on the janitor's back, to fall next to the 2 of them. Then Rodriguez and Williamson fired at the zombies on Jessica. Their first headshot went to the female zombie, then the male zombie was shot twice in the head. The first shot fired through his jaw, blowing out through the other cheek. The second shot found its target, blowing brain matter onto the wall next to them. Williamson and Conrad quickly picked the janitor up off Veronica and get her to her feet. Rodriguez quickly gave Sarah a hand up too, as to not lose even a second they would need to get out of the building.
We have to move! Everyone, follow me as fast as you can! They run back to the stairs leading down.
A zombie was blocking the stairs. Rodriguez smacked into it like a football player, sacking an opponent, causing it to fall down the stairs ahead of them. By the time it makes it to the second floor, its neck snapped. The group descended the stairs. Williamson almost trips down them, they are running so fast. On the second floor was 2 more zombies in the hall, missed from their quick search earlier. They ignore them and quickly head down the next set of stairs. They made it to the first floor, running at full speed back to the main atrium and out the front door, just as the timer reached. It exploded with an overwhelming boom, blasting the group out the front door, down the concrete steps to the main street, and scattering them in different directions. Conrad and Rodriguez smacked into the side of a parked car, causing them to fall to the ground. The rest hit the pavement. Williamson was blasted out last, and is blown to the steps. Dazed, he stood up, coming to the realization that his arm is on fire. Half panicked, he quickly pats his left arm with his right hand to put out the flames, leaving third-degree burns up and down his arm. Ignoring the pain, Williamson runs to the closest survivor, Rodriguez, and starts tapping him on his shoulder.
You okay, buddy?
Yes. However, I see you've deep-fried your arm. I know you're southern, but seriously, man, that shit's not healthy for you.
Yeah, I really got to start living healthier. This shit's going to kill me one day.
Williamson helps Rodriguez to his feet. Rodriguez makes a groaning sound from pain in his back.
There's Conrad. Make sure he's okay. I'm going to look for the 2 ladies.
Williamson nodded and went over to Conrad, who was laying on the sidewalk next to the car, not moving. Williamson knelt down next to Conrad and started shaking him. He wasn't waking up.
Wake up, brother. We can't stay here.
No answer. He tries shaking him harder.
Come on. You gotta get up.
Nothing. He is clearly still breathing, but he isn't waking. He tries something his mother taught him as a kid, called a sternal rub. This is where you firmly rub the sternum of someone with your knuckle in an attempt to rouse them from pain stimulus. Get off! That fucking hurts! It worked, causing Conrad to open his eyes annoyed.
Sorry, I know. I had to. You were unconscious. Thank my mother for that trick. She was an RN.
Thank you both. I'm sorry, just really hurt.
Conrad tried to sit up.
Fuck!
Rodriguez was returning with the 2 women at this point, surprised and worried by Conrad's sudden outcry of pain. Rodriguez and Williamson both asked at the same time.
Are you okay?
My arm is dislocated.
Conrad grabbed his right shoulder with a grimaced expression as his face turned red from the extreme pain.
Yeah, I had that once. This isn't going to feel good, my friend.
Rodriguez looked at Williamson and said,
Help me sit him up.
Together, Rodriguez and Williamson helped Conrad to a sitting position. Williamson held Conrad still as Rodriguez straightened out his arm.
Okay, here we go. On my count. 1.
Fuck me! Shit! Fuck! Okay. I'm okay. Jesus, that fucking hurts.
I told you it would. You don't listen, brother.
His mischievous smile had returned to Rodriguez's face. Conrad looked around to Sarah, finally noticing the gunshot to her arm. His stomach sank. Then he noticed Veronica, and emotion hit him. He almost fell again.
Oh, thankfully she was only scratched, Conrad thought.
Veronica saw Conrad looking at her arm and said with a half smile,
I'll be fine. Just help Sarah.
He almost lost the last two survivors. He wasn't going to let anything else happen if he could help it.
Yeah, I hadn't made it to that yet.
Rodriguez took off his belt. He then proceeded to fasten it around Sarah's arm so the bleeding would stop.
It's thankfully a through and through and to the side. I can't stitch it here in the street, but this should help until we get somewhere safer.
It'll do nicely. Thank you beyond words. I can't thank you three enough for staying to help. Together, we all have a chance to make it out of here.
Rodriguez shook his head and smiled kindly in response. Conrad stands up and pulls out Carpenter's map, placing it on the hood of the car to show the group. The Spencer Memorial Hospital was circled, along with a few other locations. Conrad pointed at the circles and said,
Well, we're definitely not going there. Help me find the fastest way to the clock tower. Remember, there's probably going to be roadblocks and monsters on the way.
He checked the watch on his right hand again and noticed it was 4:39 in the afternoon.
We also only have about 4.5 hours of daylight, and we have to get all the way up here.
Conrad pointed to the clock tower on the map. An idea popped in Sarah's mind.
The marina. See? Here.
She then points to a spot on the map, moving her finger across it as she speaks.
We can get about there, head straight up the river, to here. There's a large Catholic church here. The road it's on will lead us to St. Michael's clock tower, and we can bypass a lot of the city in the process.
Conrad looks around and notices they are drawing a large crowd of close to 50 dead citizens.
Then that's what we'll do. We need to move now.
Conrad quickly put the map away in his pocket.
We're so close now. Just a little longer, he thinks to himself.
Fear quietly slipped into his mind about what they might find between here and their destination. He tried to push this thought out of his mind. Now knowing Umbrella's true intentions, he feared what they might do while they are trapped here in Raccoon City.
Fucker broke my ribs!
Why did you save me back there at City Hall?
You remind me of my sister.
I wonder, what did that?
I don't think we want to find out.
I don't know if I can kill her.
I'm not sure I can either.
You were sent in to die. As we record combat data on the infected, the BOWs, and mutants that we've spotted since landing, how they hold up against you.
With what little he had heard about the BOWs, he knew nothing they had encountered until this point could be considered bioorganic weapons. In this town, death is never far behind you.